Hello and welcome to the PTCB Prep Guide. This is the channel that's all about making pharmacy concepts super clear, approachable, and totally exam-ready. Today, we are jumping into the nervous system. We're going to break down all the core terminology and simplify the key structures you absolutely need to know for your exam. Let's build a solid foundation of this incredible system right from the ground up.
So, let's just start with a really big question. Think about it. How does your body manage to coordinate everything at once? We're talking thinking, moving, breathing, even digesting your food. What in the world is running that whole show?
Well, the answer, of course, is the nervous system. And it is, without a doubt, the most sophisticated and complex system in the entire body. It's the master controller, the command center that regulates absolutely everything, whether you're actively thinking about it or not.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the overall command center, kind of the big picture. Then we'll zoom into the brain itself. After that, we'll talk about the information superhighway connecting it all, then the vast network of nerves, and finally, we'll get right down to the microscopic cellular messengers that make it all happen.
All right, first up, the body's command center. Let's get a handle on its two major divisions.
So the entire nervous system is split into two main parts. First, you've got the central nervous system, or the CNS for short. Think of this as headquarters. It's just the brain and the spinal cord. That's it. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. This is the massive network of nerves that branch out from the CNS, kind of like the cables and Wi-Fi signals that connect headquarters to every single part of your body.
Now, since the CNS is so incredibly important, it's really well protected. It's got this kind of dual-layer security system. The tough outer shell is bone. You've got the cranial bone, your skull, protecting the brain, and the vertebrae protecting the spinal cord. But inside that bony armor, there's a second, softer layer of protection.
And this inner covering is called the meninges. Now, it's not just one layer, it's actually three distinct layers of tissue all wrapped around the brain and spinal cord. Their job is twofold. They cushion and protect, but they also act as a channel, allowing blood and nourishment to get to all those delicate tissues underneath.
So, for your exam, you'll want to know these three layers, working from the outside in. First is the dura mater. Dura means tough, and believe me, it is. It's a thick, durable outer layer. Then you have the arachnoid matter, which gets its name because it looks like a delicate spiderweb-like structure. And finally, right up against the brain and spinal cord is the pia mater, a soft, tender inner layer. Just remember, tough, web-like, and soft. All right, now that we know how it's protected, let's dive into the central processor itself, the brain. This is, hands down, the most highly developed part of the nervous system and the absolute hub of thought, reason, and control.
Now, the biggest part of the brain, the cerebrum, is split into two halves, or hemispheres, and it's pretty wild how specialized they are. Your left hemisphere is generally your analytical side, handling things like logic, language, and numbers. The right hemisphere is more of your creative side, dealing with rhythm, imagination, and recognizing faces. But, and this is really important, they don't work alone. They are constantly talking to each other, working together as a team.
Each of those hemispheres is then divided into 4 lobes. You can think of them like different departments in a company. Up front, the frontal lobe is the CEO's office. It handles judgment, problem solving, and planning. The parietal lobe is like the operations department, integrating all the sensory info like touch and where you are in space. In the back, the occipital lobe is the visual design department. It's all about sight. And on the sides, the temporal lobes handle sound, memory, and emotion. Tucked away underneath the main cerebrum is another key player, the cerebellum. Its name literally means little brain, and it's the master of coordination. Anytime you make a smooth, voluntary movement, like walking or writing, that's the cerebellum at work. It also maintains your muscle tone and is absolutely essential for your sense of balance. And finally, connecting the brain to the spinal cord, you have the brainstem. And listen, this part is absolutely critical for survival. It controls our most vital automatic functions, things like your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing. That's why, as this quote says, any damage to this region is so incredibly serious and often life-threatening.
So, that critical brainstem connects directly to our next topic, the body's information superhighway. We are, of course, talking about the spinal cord.
The main job of the spinal cord is actually pretty straightforward. You just have to think of it as a two-way street. It carries all the sensory information, like touch, temperature, and pain, from the body up to the brain to get processed. And at the same time, It carries all the motor commands, the instructions to move, down from the brain out to your muscles. Now, floating all around the brain and spinal cord is this special liquid called cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, and it has two key jobs. First, it's a shock absorber. It literally cushions the CNS from getting banged around. And second, it acts kind of like a delivery and waste removal service, bringing nutrients in and carrying waste products out.
Okay, so we've covered headquarters, the CNS. Now let's move on to that vast peripheral network that connects the CNS to everything else. And we're going to focus on the part that basically runs on autopilot, the autonomic nervous system.
So the autonomic system is all about balance. It has two divisions that work in perfect opposition to each other. On one side, you have the sympathetic system. This is your fight-or-flight response. When you're stressed or see a threat, it kicks into high gear, jacking up your heart rate and getting your body ready for action. And its counterpart is the parasympathetic system, your rest and digest mode. It's the calming force, slowing your heart rate back down and letting you handle normal stuff like digestion. A healthy body really depends on the balance between these two.
So we've been talking about these big systems sending signals for fight or flight or rest and digest. But how do those signals actually travel? To answer that, we have to zoom way down to the microscopic level and look at the actual cellular messengers of the nervous system. So, meet the neuron, also known as a nerve cell. This little guy is the basic, fundamental unit of the entire nervous system. It has one job, and one job only, to conduct signals from one point to another. It's basically the wiring for the whole system. And the path a signal takes through a neuron is a really simple three-step process. First, these little branch-like things called dendrites receive the incoming signal. Then, that signal travels to the cell body. And from there, the long tail, called the axon, zips the signal away to pass it on to the next neuron. You can even think of it like your hand and arm. Your fingers are the dendrites catching the signal, your palm is the cell body, and your arm is the axon sending it on its way.
Now, there are two more key parts you have to know for this communication to work efficiently. First, many axons are covered in something called myelin. It's a fatty substance that acts just like the rubber insulation on an electrical wire. It keeps the signal contained and makes it travel way, way faster. The second part is the synapse. This is the teeny tiny gap between two neurons. The electrical signal can't actually jump that gap. Instead, it relies on chemical messengers called neurotransmitters to ferry the message across. And for your pharmacy tech studies, this is a huge concept because so many medications work by messing with these very neurotransmitters at the synapse.
And that brings us to a final, pretty mind-blowing question. If a single neuron is just a simple messenger, how on earth do billions of them working together create something as complex as thought, emotion, and consciousness? It's an amazing puzzle, and it all starts with the building blocks we covered today. Excellent job working through the nervous system. You are steadily building the knowledge you need to pass the PTCB with confidence. Now remember, review what you learned, rewatch any parts that were tricky, and try to practice these concepts daily. If this explainer added value, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and share. We post new simplified lessons every single day. Keep studying, your success is right around the corner.